Hey folks, welcome back. By now, you're pretty much aware that there are Senate confirmation hearings going on for now President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet. One of the more interesting ones has been Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi. Those are the ones that have gotten a lot of attention. Currently, Treasury Secretary nominee Scott Bessent. I hope I'm not completely massacring that name. I'm terrible for name pronunciations. Sue me. Anyways, he's doing his confirmation hearing. And recently he sat there. Anytime you have a confirmation hearing, you're going to hear some stupid stuff. This is just what confirmation hearings do. We already know who's going to vote for who. It's a matter of constitutional requirement, but very rarely, unless something weird happens, is someone not going to get confirmed. It happens, but again, it takes a lot. For the most part, you're going to hear some stupid things, and it's to be expected. But what you're going to hear today is probably one of the dumber things you're going to hear. This comes from Senator Ron Wyden from Kansas. I have friends from Kansas. It's a pretty red state. It's a pretty gun state. I expect better from the state of Kansas, for being honest here. But of all the stupid things I've heard, this one actually kind of takes the cake. Let's watch the first half of this clip.
Now there is a big effort in the Trump administration to reverse it. I think that's going to be bad for the economy, but it is going to be damn good for China because we are in an arms race on clean energy with them. Are you going to be on the side of people who want to unravel this?
Yeah, he really said that. First, let's get into the whole thing. I dislike the term green energy arms race. I think there's a national security issue that can be raised with green energy and energy independence. I'm a big proponent of that, and on national security grounds. Not having to import energy or even things required for energy is essential for our national security because it means our enemies just simply can't cut us off. That's the last thing we should ever need. We depend on it. It's essential for our warfighting ability, our general economy, everything. So I get that it's important, but the term arms race is a problem because it's not like we're going to be using this energy on each other. If anything they develop, we're going to figure out how to develop too. We're going to use it. They're probably going to sell it to us if we're not careful, and vice versa. So while I think it's important, I don't like this terminology. That said, again, there are national implications to energy independence. And China's interesting. See, because this whole we need energy and we need green energy independence. We need green energy. We need, that means solar and it means wind and it means, we need all of this. And all that shit comes from China. It comes from China. China is the largest producers of wind turbines, largest producer of solar panels in the world. Most of that stuff is coming from China, which means despite Wyden saying, you know who it's good for? China? No, it's not. Okay? You can make that case about Russia maybe because they're a big oil producing country. Dependence on petroleum? Sure, absolutely. That's probably good for Russia, except for the whole embargo thing. But currently, China benefits from our push for green energy. We get it from there, we bring it here, and then we pretend, thanks to people like Senator Wyden, that we're somehow accomplishing something. We're not. Let's keep in mind that green energy only works in the United States because of $15.6 billion, roughly, in subsidies. They're not making money on their own. They're only doing it because taxpayers are subsidized. Any industry that cannot make it on its own should not be getting money from the taxpayers. It's just not how it works. Bessent had a different answer, though. And he brought up some really good points. Let's play that clip. This is the second half of the earlier clip.
Senator Wyden, just so we can frame this for everyone in the room, China will build 100 new coal plants this year. There is not a clean energy race. There is an energy race. China will build 10 nuclear plants this year. That is not solar. I am in favor of more nuclear plants. And I would note that the IRA, as scored by the CBO, is wildly out of control in terms of spending on the upside.
Yeah, 100 coal-fired plants. That's just going to make the problem worse. And as it stands, China produces nearly a third of all carbon emissions in the entire world. A third. Do you think 100 new coal-fired plants are going to make that problem better? Or do you think it's going to raise how much they produce? See, we keep talking like China's one of us, like it's a Western nation with the same priorities. China doesn't care. They have a long history of polluting their own air, polluting their own water, and not really caring all that much about it because they have different priorities. They're not us. Bessent does point out they're looking at nuclear. They're doing, at least one nuclear plant. Awesome. I'm a big believer in nuclear, and we can do that too. Bessent supports nuclear. I support nuclear, and let's be honest. Let's do some comparisons. First of all the alarmism around nuclear, the worst nuclear disaster we've had in the United States was 3 Mile Island. People still lived there. People didn't move out. Like some people did, but the town is still there. Up until 2019, 3 Mile Island was still in operation. The last tower shut down, but it's not because, there was this terrible nuclear disaster. The thing kept operating for 35 years, 40 years after the 3 Mile Island disaster. They shut down where the problem was and then kept on. Fukushima was actually a selling point for a lot of people. You had a nuclear reactor, right? You had this nuclear reactor that had an abysmal safety rate. It still took an earthquake, a major earthquake, and a tsunami to cause that to melt down. Now, Chernobyl, it's the Soviet Union. That's all the explanation you get. Communism sucks at everything. There you go. So, nuclear. We're going with nuclear. Bessent wants to create new nuclear plants. He supports new nuclear plants. It's music to my ears. But let's also understand that there's a different kind of environmental cost that takes place when we deal with these things. There's space, right? They take up land. So your average nuclear plant, based on very rudimentary Google food, but the average nuke plant creates about 900 to 1,000 megawatts of power. And it does it on 1 1/3 square miles, so around 830 acres or so. To create a like amount of power, at a minimum, a wind farm needs 22,500 acres. And that acreage isn't really usable for anything else. Windmills make god-awful noises. They create tons of sound. It's just not pleasant for anyone to be around. So you get grass. That's about it. You might be able to put some trees, low trees, whatever. But it eats up a lot of ground that cannot be used for anything else, and that a lot of animals want nothing to do with. Oh yeah, and it kills birds. Plus, when windmills are decommissioned for whatever reason, they're not recyclable. They're put into landfills. There's apparently quite a bit of oil inside of them, probably as lubricant mostly. It's just not that environmentally sound, all things considered. All right, so solar farms, though. Hey, solar's different. Look, on some level, I like solar. I think there's some potential there, at least as a supplement. Not the way it's currently practiced. For a solar farm to produce that 900 megawatts of power, it needs, based on, at a minimum, 3,600 acres. Now, keep in mind, that's acreage where you're dealing with panels that are covering everything. Nothing's growing underneath it. Therefore, there's no habitat for any animals, insects, most anything. It kills, there's just nothing there, right? I think maybe you can get some grass or some, there are some plants that can probably thrive, but it's just not conducive for the environment as a whole. So all in all, what you end up with is a case of the things we're being told are green aren't as green as they want to make it out to be. There's zero emissions, but so is nuclear, and it's a lot more compact, creates a lot more power, and it's a proven technology that doesn't require massive subsidies. The so-called green energy that, Senator Wyden says we've totally got to get on top of, because, if not, China's going to pass us, all comes from China, takes up more land, creating more of an ecological impact in the grand scheme of things. And for what? For what? Look, I get the environmentalists love solar power. They love wind power. This is, you know, it doesn't matter because it's not ready for prime time. Someday solar might get to where it's efficient enough that on 1 1/3 square miles, you can produce 900 megawatts of power. That'd be great. I like the idea of solar. Why? Because even if people completely screw everything up, solar's not likely to irradiate at home. But there are so many nuclear plants in operation throughout the world where that's just not an issue. So let's drop the alarmism about and quit acting like wind and solar and crap like that is somehow going to make our world better, especially if you're trying to sell me that this is going to help us beat China. I'm as critical of China as anyone, but come on, man. Come on, man. We can do better than that. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up because holy crap is this weapons grade idiocy, right? It's just, but then again, what do you expect out of a senator?